Hey guys, what's up? It's Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of CreativeLive. You all know that we have more than 2,000 classes and more than 10,000 hours of learning, inspirational, and motivational content on the platform. I'm super excited to announce a new experience on CreativeLive. It's called Fast Class. You've told us that you're busy and sometimes it's hard to dive into a full class from start to finish. So essentially, we're now giving you a shortened highlight version of our top CreativeLive classes. You can always dive into the full class with 5, 10, or 15 hours of great content. But now, if you're just looking to focus on a few of the highlights or want to be able to skip quickly to something that really interests you, you can now get a shortened fast class version of that class. We're also thinking this might be able to help you explore a new craft and save time while doing it. This is a great tool to curate your learning experience to help create the life that you seek. So you're probably thinking, great, how do I access this new experience on CreativeLive? That's easy. All you have to do is be a subscriber to the Creator Pass, and then all this is yours. If you're feeling isolated and looking for creative connection, try tuning into creativelive.com/TV. That's where we've got a 24/7 live stream from the kitchen counters.
I can do that backlit shot that I really like to do.
From the studios and living rooms of many of the world's top creators, where we're doing musical performances, Q&As, cooking shows, virtual book tour events, drawing, spoken word poetry, and more.
Life passed me by waiting for an invitation when the world is greater than my nation or my occupation. Be someone you've never been. You feel all that adrenaline, it's medicine.
It actually helps me feel like my days are more purposeful.
I hope that out of this deep pain will come some collective growth.
Dive into CreativeLive TV today.
Hi, and welcome to CreativeLive TV. I am your host today, Kate Dessa, and I am back, and we will continue to be coming back every Monday with Andrew Scrivani, who is a world-renowned food photographer and an amazing at-home chef. And each week he's coming to us on Mondays at 12 p.m. PST to show us a new recipe and then show us how to take a beautiful photo of it. So I will be hosting and Andrew will be cooking. So let's welcome Andrew onto the show again.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, Andrew.
Welcome back to the Work From Home Cafe. So that's
excited
my opening.
To be here.
That's my opening line on my Instagram story all the time. So I have to be consistent, right? So welcome everyone to the Work From Home Cafe. And we are still here, and we are still working from home, and I'm still cooking a lot. So I'm gonna do some cooking for you today. I previewed a little on my Insta story earlier today, and I think we're gonna do some polenta with sausages. It's a really simple prep, really easy, and you probably have most of the ingredients in your cupboard already, with the exception of maybe sausages, which are in your freezer. So I'm excited to make this because it's something I've been craving and I've been wanting to make. So the sausages were staring at me from the freezer, so they had to come out and play today.
All right. Well, I am excited. Last week we made risotto from, so we'll just do a little rewind of what we've been making and you guys can catch up We will be adding these to a replay so you guys can follow along. But first we made arancini, which are homemade rice balls that were your grandmother's recipe, if I recall correctly. And then you had a little leftover rice. So last week we used that arborio rice to make a little bit of risotto, and people really loved that dish. I didn't have broccoli, so I threw in some chicken into mine, and I just overheard my coworker, he did the same. So each week we're going to continue to be bringing awesome recipes from you, and we're at least us coworkers are taking full advantage of it.
I've been getting some pictures online too of people who have been making the work from home cafe recipes. So if you do make anything and you want to show me that, then absolutely send it to me, and I'll put it up on my story. So I'd love to see what you're making. So that's pretty cool. So the theory behind the polenta with sausages today, other than me wanting it, is another kind of rescuing some stuff out of the pantry. So, a lot of us, have the ambition of making some cornmeal, or we're using polenta for something else. And I want to basically make it clear that cornmeal and polenta are exactly the same ingredient. The difference is the grind, and that sometimes when you buy a product that's labeled as polenta, it's because it's the ideal grind of the cornmeal for cooking it. When you do it a traditional polenta grind, which is a heavier grind, it takes a little longer to cook. What I'm going to use today is what I had in the fridge. So I'm assuming that a lot of you will do the same. Is you'll find some cornmeal in your cabinet, and you'll say, "Oh, now I know how to make a little bit of polenta with this." So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the polenta with the cornmeal I have, which is a little bit of a finer grind. They say sometimes that gets a little pasty. So what we'll do is make sure we add plenty of fat to make it taste better, and also give it a little creaminess. There'll be some cheese in there and some butter. And if I find that it still needs a little help, I'll throw in a little splash of milk, and that'll help a little bit. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to step over here and light my stove. So I want to get this grill pan hot, because that's going to start our process with the sausages. So I'm going to shoot. I'm going to cook. I'm also going to shoot some spicy Italian sausages. I have about 3 big links, so it's probably close to a pound. I'm going to use a cup of ground cornmeal, a half a cup of Parmesan or Locatelli Romano cheese, salt, pepper, butter, oil, and an onion. The onion I'm going to cut up in a minute, and I'm going to show you just some basic knife skills, just so that when you're cutting an onion, you can do things safely if you're not used to handling a knife. I'm going to do some more stuff coming up on knives and knife safety. And one of the things that you might not know, or maybe you've heard it before, is that the sharpest knife you own is the safest knife you own. Because the worst thing that you could do is have to force a knife through food, and then you slip and cut yourself. So if your knife is good and sharp, and you practice good technique with your knives, you'll have a lot more success and less Band-Aids on your fingers. So I cut myself this week, but I did it with the coffee maker. I have an espresso maker, and I was cleaning the filter, and I slipped, and the nozzle of the filter cut my hand. So like I'm luckily, you in the kitchen, you're gonna get cuts on your hands. Hopefully it's not from your knives. So I'm gonna flip you down in a sec here and do this cut up as I'm getting all my other things off my cutting board. So hang in there, watch this. We're going for the big flip. Okay, there you go. You're down on my cutting board now. I could see that. You see, here's the rest of our ingredients: our cornmeal, olive oil, salt, pepper, butter. You can see all the things. We're going to use a lot of water in this dish too. So I will show you how we're going to go through that as we go. I'll also post the ingredients, the amounts on my Insta story after this. So with this onion, I'm going to cut off both ends. Some people leave that little top end on there to hold it together. when they cut it, because they do it the way I'm going to do it right now. So I give it a little, take the onion skin, just give it a little slice so that you can get a peel on it and peel off that outer onion skin. It's a little tough anyway.
And Andrew, is this the way you cut an onion regardless of if you're dicing, slicing, mincing, regardless of how you?
This is going to be a little different because I'm not going to dice this onion. I'm going to slice it because I want to have like ribbons. So if you could see this here, you see the grain of the onion. So normally when I'm cutting an onion to dice it, I would cut slits down this way, like that, and then go this way to make a dice. But because I want the grains and I want to use the length of the onion, I turn it sideways and I'm going to cut it against the grain. And you see, I use my index finger here as the guide, and you keep all your other fingers behind the knife so that if you're cutting and your thumb is out here like this, you're going to hurt yourself. But if you use your index finger as your guide, and then you can also measure like the width that you want. So I want sort of like 1/8 of an inch width on these, so to have a little substance to them. But you can see that all my fingers are behind the knife, and I just rock the knife up and down. And when I get down to the end of this, it gets a little bit harder to cut. So I'm going to pinch it. I'm going to be very careful, make sure the knife bites first, so I not slip and cut myself. So I get that little bite on the knife, on the onion, and then I kind of just slide down. And you can see I'm getting these like half rings, and this is exactly what I'm looking for. These will cook nice later. So I'm going to do the same. I think my sausages are ready to go in, and I know you could see that on our B cam, our cook cam. So I'm going to put those on the grill pan.
What kind of sausages are these? Are they Italian sausages? Are they spicy?
Yeah, these are spicy Italian sausages.
All right.
So
that's what they look like from here.
Yes, and they are. And they are not super spicy, but they're nice enough where
this is the part I always have trouble with, is the very end, getting so close, and that technique that you have there. Or I end up doing what you're doing right now, which is kind of taking that one of the pieces of the skin and then kind of cutting it down.
Exactly. So as those grill, they should take about 10 or 15 minutes to grill. I'm going to fire up the other pot, and we're going to get this going with the cup of polenta. I'm going to put this back up so we can talk. Hello. So I'm going to put this in here with my first cup of water, and I'm going to stir that until it gets. I'm going to put the camera on my chest in about a minute. I just want to get this started.
And that was just the onions and water, no oil.
Oh no, this is just water and polenta.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, the onions are going to get grilled on that grill pan once the sausages are done cooking. Okay. Now I put them on there without any oil, which is okay. I'll probably add a little oil after, once the sausages are done, and then I'll cook the onions on top of that.
Got it.
So, okay, so that's pretty well incorporated. I'm going to let that go for a bit, and I'm going to put the camera on my chest so we can, I'm going to go that way. 1 second. Get right back. Oh my God.
So I'll remind everybody that this is CreativeLive TV. This is our weekly show with Andrew Scrivani, the Work From Home Cafe. Andrew is taking us to his home in upstate New York to teach us a recipe that he likes to make at home. And then afterwards, he's going to show us how to take mouth-watering photos of what we're learning how to make, so we can share our photos and also make something delicious each week. So today we are making Italian sausage with polenta. Andrew is setting up the sausages right now, are grilling up, and he's just getting the polenta boiling.
Okay, I'm gonna take this guy off here, and I'm gonna put him on my chest. And just a second, what happened? Can you see me on this camera right now?
I can just see you on one camera right now.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I just need to. I have to flip it around, or else it doesn't work. I can't see what I'm cooking through the camera. This is super high, so we're gonna turn that down a little bit because those sausages are cooking quick. And I'm gonna get this back in the holder. Right, okay, good. This should go like this. Thank you for your patience, everyone. This is the wonders of live television. Oh God, technical difficulties.
Okay, we often get a lot of questions about the cameras you're using for us to create this little show that we're doing live. And right. Andrew's actually just setting up his iPhone on. And what's the mount that you wear, Andrew?
It's
what's
basically
that called?
It's a modified GoPro mount. It's a chesty,
okay,
they call it.
Okay.
And it's basically meant for a iPhone. It will hold an iPhone in place like a chest-mounted GoPro. So now you can see where I'm working on the stove, and I neglected this for a bit. I have to add some water, but you can see how it absorbs the water really fast.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to work those lumps out now.
And this is something that I often do, and I'm sure lots of people, it's like you get into doing one thing you're cooking and you forget about the other things. Often I get nervous that I'm going to ruin it. You just kind of made me feel like, okay, it's okay if it gets a little lumpy. You can work through those lumps and it's not foregone because you forgot about it for a few minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Because, not always do you have to stop in the middle of your cooking to adjust your chest cam, but there are times when, you get distracted by other things. So this happens, and it's okay. And you know what? A little lump isn't going to kill you. So I've already got this going here, and I'm going to add some salt. So I should have put a little bit in the very beginning, but it's okay because, again, it doesn't change the recipe by putting the salt in a couple of minutes later. So you can see I'm getting a nice consistency here, but as it thickens more and more, I'm going to make sure I'm continuing to add water, and I'm going to continue to keep moving it. Because if you let it sit, it will stick to the pan. You can see I'll get around the edges and get some of that down. I'm using a heavy cast iron enameled sort of Dutch oven.
Yeah,
but you can use anything you got for this. You want to keep the heat sort of medium, and as it kind of keeps going, maybe even a little bit lower than that. Making an adjustment here. You don't need to cook with a rubber spatula. I am just grabbing whatever utensils in front of me. We're getting a nice consistency here. Excuse me, those spicy sausages are getting to me. Woo! All right.
And so when you're using, regular cornmeal versus polenta style cornmeal. Are you
Yep.
looking for a slightly different consistency in your polenta, or what are you kind of looking for, if there is any differences?
I think the end product should be the same. Your end product should definitely be this sort of creamy, that's, not too thick. This is a little watery right now, but this is going to cook down even more. But what you're doing is you're infusing the cornmeal with water, so it's swelling. So it's just getting thicker as you go. And you realize that once you get to a thickness that is going to work for your dish, it sort of, it's like a heavy oatmeal, would be. Maybe oatmeal is probably, like a creamy oatmeal. That's sort of about the right consistency of a good polenta. Now, in northern Italy, they have the polenta and they form it into cubes, and then they cut it with a string. That's not the kind of polenta we're making today. Now, you can do it that way, and you can bake your polenta and make it into cubes and then serve it. One of the dishes that people like to make with that is with mushrooms. So you get like a sauteed mushroom ragu and put it over like a brick of polenta. It's a very classic northern Italian dish. Yeah. Really good. So one of my housemates here. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, this technique very much reminds me of, the risotto we were making last week. It's just kind of keeping an eye on it, adding water, and making sure it's not sticking to the bottom.
Yeah, and I haven't even gotten into pasta yet. I have maybe next week. Polenta, risotto, and pasta. I'm covering all the Italian basics. And arancini, right? Little did I know my tongs were right there. Whoa! Yes, we do too make mistakes. You have to do this with these. I think you do, right? So now let's see that bubbling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really bubbling right now. That's great. And my sausages are about.
Do you ever make polenta with chicken stock or something to add some more flavor? Is that something you wouldn't recommend?
I have in the past, and it's definitely something you can do. I chose not to do it this time because I know that sometimes when I do these recipes, I'm trying to be mindful that if you want to make a minor adjustment and make it vegan or vegetarian, you can do that. So this dish isn't necessarily vegan, but it would be vegetarian if you only added the cheese and the butter.
And you are cooking for meat eaters and vegetarians in your house, if I remember correctly, right?
Well, I wouldn't call. I think everybody here is an omnivore, but they definitely. Some people prefer a little less meat. I don't know why I keep doing that. I caught it that time, but I made a mess. So my sausages are almost there. You can see we got a nice brown edge on them. I would say these are probably another 3 or 4 minutes out.
And
my polenta is probably.
What's your take on sausages, at least for this recipe, on the stove like this versus grilling them on your grill?
I think however you want to cook them for this will work, because they're really kind of they're almost like two separate dishes here, right? The polenta can stand alone. You can put other things with it. You could eat it just by itself with, if you want to put the cheese and butter in it, like we're going to at the end. But the sausages are sort of an accompaniment, so you can cook them any way you like, and then, or you could add something else. You could add, if you want to put vegetables on top, you absolutely can do that. You can grill up, some zucchini, or you can put whatever your favorite vegetable is that you're working with. You can put it on top of polenta. Why not? Just like you could with pasta.
Yeah.
Same deal. So I think I'm going to end up cutting these anyway. So I'm going to cut one in half to see how cooked it is. You can see we're almost there. So I'm going to let that cook a little longer. Now that I have that one cut, I can actually look at that and it'll tell me when the rest of them are done. Because we're going to cut them into little circles anyway to put on top of the dish.
Okay.
And I think what I can do now is sort of share the pan, add a little oil, and put my onions in there, because it's going to be, could infuse a little bit of flavor from the pork fat, from the should use a bench scraper, not your knife, but I sharpen my knives all the time, so I'm allowed. Yeah, my polenta is looking really good right now. Got a nice texture. It's getting thick. I may let it cook a little longer. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt on my onions. There you get back here.
And we were talking just a minute ago about in northern Italy how they kind of mold the polenta and then bake it and use it kind of as like a bread or a cracker type of style. If you have leftover polenta like this, is it reasonable to say like you could mold it after the fact and then do a play on that with leftovers?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes you don't even have to bake it. I mean, if you put it in a form and you just let it set, it'll firm up, and you can actually use it just like that. I mean, if you wanted to bake it, you could, but I mean, this will dehydrate essentially and just keep swelling and firming up the longer you leave it there. So you saw what happened earlier when I kind of neglected the pot for a minute. It evaporated all the water and got really firm. Now, I've made this in the oven where that's exactly what happens, right? You put the water in, or the chicken stock, or whatever you're going to use, and you put it in the oven, and you just let it cook at a lower temp until all the water evaporates and gets into the polenta. You stir it maybe once or twice along the way, and then you take it out and let it sit, and it gets nice and firm. So check our consistency.
Yeah.
You can see that's sort of almost there. I think it's still a little liquidy, but I want to make it a little firmer. But it will firm up as when I take it out, like I just said. So I don't think I'm going to add a whole lot more water to this. But at the end, we're going to add our cheese and our butter.
The two best parts.
Now, you getting any questions on your end over there, Kate?
Everyone just thinks it looks delicious right now. Everyone's getting hungry.
Well, that reminds me, that's been my job for a long time, making images that make people hungry.
If someone wants to capture while they're actually cooking, what type of shots right now would you maybe recommend? Some over the top, or how do you, or do you ever, shoot while you're cooking?
So if I'm shooting this dish right now, I'm definitely capturing it in this phase, right? The phase of this beautiful swirling of the polenta with the steam rising off of it. I would love to take this shot. I would shoot this like kind of level with maybe a 3/4, sort of like I could show you with this camera. If I squint down, you can kind of get in here like that. Right?
Yeah.
And this too would be really nice over the top. So if I'm looking straight down on it, you can make some really nice process shots here, which would maybe even be better than the final shot, or a really nice complement to the, to the final shot. This could be really nice. So you can see I'm getting a nice caramelization on my onions. My sausages look just about ready. I'm going to take those off in a second and let the onions keep caramelizing. And I'm scraping those edges off with the wire whisk to keep this getting thicker. Scrape the bottom too. It'll make cleaning up later a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to take the sausages down. I feel like there's a firmness to them that makes even if I didn't know they were cooked through because I cut one. There's a firmness to them that you can kind of sense right here and feel. You know, with the edge, you just squeeze them. They got a nice firmness.
I mean, that's typically, in general, how I gauge my meats is based on the touch and feel rather than, I mean, it depends on if I have a thermometer, but that's the easiest indicator for me personally.
Yeah, I did something on the Work From Home Cafe about steaks, probably in like week 2, where you use that hand method where you use your hand, and as you're touching different fingers, the firmness of the muscle under your thumb is a really good indicator of like doneness. And I was teaching people how to use that. If you wanted to check that out, that's on my Instagram story highlights, and or on my YouTube page about doing sort of a temp test on when you cook steaks. So this is something you have to get used to being able to do at the stove sometimes, is sort of this ambidextrous two-handed cooking technique. It definitely helps when you got things like this that are both requiring your attention. These are not the kind of recipes where you just kind of put stuff on the stove and let them go. You definitely have to watch the pot here. And that whole idea that the watch pot never boils, no, that's not true. The pot will boil, it'll boil over, and it will make a big mess in your kitchen. So, getting really nicely caramelized here. These look great. We're getting really close to being done. I may actually just turn that pan off. Now, when you're using this type of cookware, this pan will stay hot for 10 minutes. And if you wanted these things to keep cooking, even though that you don't want them to burn, you just turn that heat off and just let them sit with the residual heat in the pan, and that'll keep going.
And the pan that you're making the sausage and onions in is also cast iron?
Yes, this is all cast iron cookware by Staub. This is a company that I have a relationship with, and they have some beautiful cookware, enameled cookware. I actually got to visit their factory in France, which was super cool. Got to see how they make these things. That was last fall. That was very cool.
Nice.
Right outside of Paris. Terrible work trip, you know? Oh, yeah. You see the thickness? I think we're almost there.
Oh, yeah.
What time is it?
It is 12:30 on the dot.
Wow. So I think we probably are around done with this. So I'm going to take that down off the heat. I'm going to let that firm up a little bit more. Get that beautiful steam going. Now I'm going to go and put my butter in, clunk, and my cheese.
And how much butter and cheese? Is that kind of a personal preference, or do you have an amount you typically put in?
This recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of butter and between a half and a full cup of cheese. So I went with the 2 tablespoons of butter and about 3/4 of a cup of cheese. I just put a little salt and pepper, and now I have a rubber spatula, and the rubber spatula will help me scrape those sides down and incorporate all of that amazingness into that. Now, this is definitely going to take a taste test when I'm done to see for saltiness, because I want to make sure it has enough salt. Now, with that kind of cheese, both Parmesan or Pecorino, both have a high salt content. So you want to watch out so that you don't oversalt this food, because oversalted polenta is really this dish is really about the balance of flavor. And if you oversalt it, it's kind of terrible. So you can see I got a beautiful creamy texture.
Yeah.
I think my worries about using a finer cornmeal were sort of unfounded, because I think it really does have the right look to it.
Totally.
And I think that if I let that sit for a minute while I cut the sausages and get the plate ready, I think that's probably going to be perfect. Yeah, I'm going to let that sit for just a minute. Okay. So you could see my cutting board, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I think I'm done with the water, so I'm not worried about that. So now I'm going to cut these. I'm going to let that sit before I taste it. I'm going to cut the sausages into, this is interesting because I can't see my hands, into little wheels. These are going to be really nice on top of the polenta and the.
You're proving that the finger trick works because you can't even see your hands right now.
Yes, I'm cutting by feel. But if I cut my thumb off, you wouldn't even tell because it looks just like the rest of the sausage.
Looks like a sausage.
Giving the word the meaning, new meaning to sausage hands.
Yeah. And so I know in this polenta you were using pecorino or Parmesan. Is there any other cheeses that you think work well in polenta specifically?
I think that, any hard Italian cheese will work. I think that, most of the time we cook with Parmesan or pecorino, which is a sheep cheese.
Yeah.
So I think we're over here now, and I think these kind of have the right color. These look really nice. I'm going to take them off and keep them aside so that when I assemble my plate. Sorry for all the scraping noises.
Remind everybody, these onions got this color just purely from a little oil and the residual grease from the sausages, correct?
That is correct. So there was a little bit of pork fat in here from the sausages and a little spiciness from the pepper because it's a spicy sausage. So that was really nice. And then I added just a tiny bit of olive oil, probably only about a tablespoon. So here are the component pieces. I'm going to taste this now and see how it's looking. I'm a big chef's tasting spoon. Pretty creamy. Probably should firm up just a little more to more like maybe a little bit less than mashed potatoes. This is sort of like almost like a puree at this point. Not too salty.
So right
so I'm going to add a little. I'm going to add a little salt and a little more pepper.
Do you have the polenta flame on right now, or are you just using the residual heat? Did you turn it off? I can't remember.
I did. I turned it off.
Okay.
So we're just using the residual heat now. I'm worked in a little bit more salt and pepper. Scraping up the bottom. That'll help thicken it a bit. But people prefer, everybody prefers their polenta like the way people prefer their oatmeal in a way, like different textures, different.
Yeah.
So I might put this on a low flame just for a minute because I feel like it definitely has a little tiny bit more liquid than I want. And this is also a good indication of how forgiving this dish is. Let me get that taste. Make sure the salt is right.
Yeah, it seems like polenta is fairly hard to mess up, even if you forget or turn off the heat too much. You can come back to it and rework it, which is a nice thing to do when you're working.
It's also something that reheats really well. So if you make it and put it in the fridge and then take it out, it's going to be clumpy and sticky. And then you add a little liquid to it, put it back on the flame, and it'll get creamy again.
Okay.
But this is the stage where a lot of people take it out and put it in the mold and then put it in the oven and let it bake. You could do it that way now too. So, all right. So I'm going to take this and put it back on my tripod so I can talk to you. So I'll be taking this off in a second.
All right. And I'll remind everybody that this is CreativeLive TV. Again, this is our new live channel. It's at creativelive.com/TV. And we are going to the homes and kitchens and studios of all of our favorite creators to see how they are staying creative, motivated, and inspired in this strange time. Today we're here with Andrew Scrivani, who will be coming back every Monday at 12 o'clock to give us a weekly recipe from his home in upstate New York, and then he's going to teach us how to take a beautiful photo of it afterwards. So today we are making spicy Italian sausage with polenta. He is making polenta right now with some cornmeal, and we're almost to the point where we're getting ready to plate it.
Don't forget the onions.
Oh, don't forget the onions. You are right. Excuse me. And in terms of, so this is just like pretty much a 3-ingredient. I mean, I guess we have a little cheese and butter, but sausage, polenta, and onions are the 3 main ingredients, which most of us are probably going to have at least some variation of those ingredients at home. So that's really great.
Yep. And
variation. Go ahead.
What's nice too is that, if you don't have cornmeal at home, this is one of those kind of ingredients you can get pretty readily, even online.
Yeah.
If you're not doing a lot of shopping out in the stores right now, you could probably order this, and it'd be if you have enough other things like staples like oil and butter and cheese in your house, you could definitely make something really delicious with those ingredients. So. And that's, add a little meat if you have sausage or you have some other meats that you want to use. You can do that too. There's nothing wrong with putting whatever you like on it. This is just a little bit more traditional.
Rocks Productions made polenta last night, and they put shrimp on theirs. But they also said that they love making their polenta a little more firm because they like to put eggs on top, and that the sunny side eggs gives you that kind of liquidy, so they look like to have it a little bit more firm to complement some breakfast dishes, which is a really good, yummy sounding thing to do.
Yeah, polenta and eggs is great. I said earlier, polenta and mushrooms is delicious. Polenta and shrimp is delicious. I mean, these are all things that, we've had in restaurants, but this is the kind of stuff you can make at home, super cheap and really delicious. And it photographs really nice too, because we're going to have this beautiful yellow color of the polenta on our plate. And then we're going to kind of set it off with that reddish brown of the spicy sausages and the kind of caramelized onions on top. So I kind of took you guys away from the stove a little bit, but I'm basically firming this polenta up a little more, because once I added in my fats, it sort of felt a little too liquidy to me. So I've kind of put it back over the flame, and I'm cooking off a little bit more liquid, and I think I'm gonna like that result, because I'm getting a little creamier and I'm getting a little bit stiffer. You could see that kind of almost stands up in there. So you can see me on the side.
And so again, this is Creative Live TV. We're here with Andrew Scrivani. Andrew is doing his daily work from home cafe, and on Mondays he's coming to Creative Live TV to give us a peek into his kitchen. You should follow along. He is Andrew Scrivani on Instagram and on YouTube as well.
Yes, you can find me pretty much anywhere on social with just my name, Andrew Scrivani as one word. I think on YouTube it's actually separated. But I am just at Andrew Scrivani in most places. And I tell people, if you could spell my name, you can find me. So.
And it's spelled the way it sounds.
It's spelled the way it sounds, even though half my teachers couldn't pronounce it. But which kind of baffles me, because everybody I went to school with was either Irish or Italian. So.
Oh, man.
Catholic school in New York. All right, I'll just give you an update. I took off the flame, and now I'm letting that kind of residually sit. So let's see how that looks in about a minute. And you had a question?
Yeah, we just got a question from Andrew Crane on Facebook, and he's wondering, are grits in polenta the same thing?
Yeah, it's also cornmeal, but grits are also cut. Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. Is grits white cornmeal? I think grits might
I
be white
think
cornmeal.
grits are white cornmeal. That sounds right.
Right.
And they
I think
typically are a bit like thicker of a grind.
right. Coarse, very coarse.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if I got that wrong, somebody will correct me. But I'm pretty sure that is definitely, because I know that I can't eat wheat. So I know that when I eat out in the South, I can get like a starch with my breakfast, other than potatoes, by getting grits. So it definitely agrees with me better than eating breads. Although I miss them so. I miss my bread. Gluten-free bread just ain't the same.
Being an Italian lover and not being able to eat wheat must be hard. But you found lots of ways to still feel like you're, eating authentic Italian food without flour. You find lots of different ways to eat delicious, authentic food.
Italian cuisine is really versatile. I have a friend who has a restaurant in the East Village. It's called Il Posto Accanto. It's my favorite place to eat. They do a polenta dish as well. And she consistently says that, Italian food can be vegan. Italian food could be vegetarian. Italian food could be pescatarian, because you basically start with these starchy ingredients like pasta or polenta or rice, and then you add whatever it is you're going to add to them. And whether or not you add meat to them is your choice, but they don't lose their Italianness. They don't lose their flavor profiles, because it's onions and it's garlic and it's herbs and it's olive oil. And when you mix those things together, you have this sort of beautiful combination. Excuse me, all I do is talk. They have this beautiful combination that's sort of a baseline for all Italian cuisine and the Mediterranean cuisine too. I'm working with a young woman who's photographing and teaching people how to work with Greek food. And it's very much the same. You're working with these beautiful basic ingredients, peasant food for the most part, and then you can either upscale it or downscale it based on, from your ingredient list. So how's my polenta doing? It's getting there.
So we have a couple more questions that have come in. First, we have, there's agreement that grits are usually white, but there are yellow grits out there.
Okay.
So I don't know if that is exactly the differentiator, but typically they are white corn grits, but you can find yellow corn grits if you're looking.
Okay.
Michael from Facebook asks a question for you. He says he usually uses a cast iron pan, but it starts to burn pretty fast. Should one slow the flame for cooking in a cast iron pan?
Yeah, I think I cook in cast iron a lot, so I'm used to it. And I have a commercial grade stove, so it has very high BTUs. So once that pot gets, whatever vessel you're using gets up to temperature, you're smart to just dial that temp back a little bit, because it's going to hold heat really, really well. So you may very well end up burning it. It's not like using like a non-stick or some other piece of cookware. Cast iron really holds heat well. So try to get your thing up to temp once it's boiling or once it's sizzling or whatever, and then just temper it down a little bit, because it will definitely prevent you from burning your whatever you're doing. And of course, whatever you're working with, if you have to move it or adjust it or stir it or whatever you're working on. But definitely cast iron is tricky, but once you get used to it, it's second nature. So.
Got it.
All right. So how are we doing on time, Kate?
It's just about 12:45.
Okay, so I'm going to give this a shot. It's still a little bit loose, but I think it's still okay. I think it's okay.
Okay.
I know it tastes good.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, so I'm going to use a little plate, and I talked about this a little bit last week, is that when I plate food for camera, I have a tendency to scale it down a little bit. so that I can use a macro lens and get close and still see the edge of the plate. So that's my, hold on, not walking away, getting the ladle. Okay, similar to our risotto dish last week, this is heavy and thick, right? So if you get it on the plate, and you can see on the side cam here how nice that looks, you want to kind of get it piled up in the middle. And I bet you this firms up even more now that it hits this cold plate, right? And then if you want to move it around a little bit, you just kind of tilt it and get it like this. So I'm going to flip you down again so you can see as I plate the food.
And let me ask you, is it just a coincidence that you mostly have white plates at home, or do you typically, when you are shooting food, look for lighter, brighter plates?
I usually like neutral. So whatever's neutral works for me. And I think that using white plates or gray plates, I usually use black plates, although that's not as much in the trend right now as to use black plates. But if I'm using white at home, it's because I like the aesthetic of that in my kitchen. But when I'm shooting in my studio, I have a large selection of plates, but I do tend to go lighter currently and neutral, and usually not shiny. You see, this plate's a little shiny for me. This is not something I would normally shoot on in my studio. I would tend to either use a neutral plate that's low shine or matte. And if I can't achieve that, especially if I'm in like a commercial setting and I have a plate that I need to use that's shiny, I will spray it with dulling spray. Unfortunately, once you hit a plate with dulling spray and put food on it, you can't eat the food anymore. So that's usually more in a commercial. We don't want to do that. That's more in a commercial kind of setting. Okay, so you see I have chopsticks. When I'm plating food for camera, I like to use chopsticks so I can place the food exactly where I want it. And here, because I have this small plate and I want to sort of work with my, see how firm it got? It just bounced.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the right consistency now. And I'm kind of just trying to make an artful mess, not necessarily something that is perfect, but definitely a little bit of an artful mess. So I got the onions now, which I'm gonna let fall off to the side. And I'm gonna put another piece of sausage so you can actually tell it's sausage. There we go. So if I'm gonna eat this, I would, again, like last week, you saw that I, hold on one second, I'm gonna get some more cheese right here. I'm gonna give this a little sprinkle of cheese, like I did last week, a nice little artful mess. And another little sprinkle of pepper to give a little contrast. And I feel like styling wise, we're kind of where we are at. So now is that point in our presentation where I have to move you. So you were gonna go for a walk and you're gonna come over to the table with me where I already have my camera. I don't know if it's loaded, but it's definitely here. So as you can see, if I turn you around, this is a lot of light, right?
Yeah.
So you can see I got a lot of light coming in this room. And I'm gonna set you up right here on the table like last time. Here's the camera. I might have to tilt you down a little bit. Right, okay. I'm gonna get B cam, I'll be right back.
All right. So if you're just tuning in with us, this is CreativeLive TV, our new live stream that comes to you on a daily basis. Today we are here with Andrew Scrivani, who is coming to us every Monday at 12 o'clock to teach us a new recipe and then teaching us how to take beautiful photos of it so we can share with our friends and make them jealous of what we're eating at home. Today we are making polenta, sausage, and grilled onions, and it is a beautiful dish that Andrew just finished plating, and he's going to show us how to take a beautiful photo of it. Afterwards, he will share with us the measurements. This was a super simple dish. It was literally just cornmeal and water. Then after that came to a boil, he added a little cheese and butter to that. And then we just have some nicely grilled, not grilled, pan-seared sausages and onions. And then he just got it all plated. He's setting up his scene to show us how beautiful the plate is. Each week, like I said, Andrew is going to be coming back to us at 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific time to show us how a new recipe so we can be inspired at home and continue to make delicious stuff while we're all stuck at home. Andrew is a world-renowned food photographer. He shoots for the New York Times as well as many other publications. And right now he's setting up the plate to show us this beautiful dish.
So just taking a test shot. Okay. So you can see me over here, I believe. Yeah. Hi. There I am.
Yep.
Hi. So I'm set up here, and I have, I will explain my attire. I am wearing shorts in cold weather and sandals because I had the misfortune of walking through some poison ivy. So pants are not an option at the moment. So this is not a fashion choice. This is definitely necessity. Okay, so I placed this on a charger, which basically, if we were doing this in let me talk to you down here. Here I am. Okay. So I put a bigger plate underneath my small plate. So this is an undersized plate. So this is a dessert plate with that I plated the polenta on. And then I took a dinner plate, and I'm using the dinner plate like a charger. So basically I'm doing, like, normally a charger would be about that big, and then the dinner plate would fit on top of it. So I've kind of created the same situation except with a dinner plate and a dessert plate. So I just want to see it and see what it looks like. I know we have nice color and contrast with everything that we've already created and plated. So I'm going to take a couple of shots and I'll show it to you. And then we'll do it without the charger as well and see what we get. So hang in there.
All right.
So I'm using my 50 millimeter standard lens. And my settings in here right now are 1/25th of a second at about 5.6 at 800 ISO. So I want to see how that looks. I'm going to shoot straight down. I got these really nice circles going. The circle of polenta, the circle of the first plate, and the circle of the second plate. And that's really nice right off the bat. So check it out. You could see, hold on, I got to come back this way. There we go.
There we go.
So you can see I got those sort of concentric circles working. And that was sort of my thought when I saw the polenta kind of settle in a nice circle in the middle of the plate, was that I would like to kind of continue that motif with the circling. So I'm going to keep going with this. I'm going to just get a little closer, because even with, as long as I have all of my, get a little tighter, you could still kind of get the sense of, hold on, where's the lens?
No, you're right. There we go.
There we go. So even when you get closer, I still have the full circle of the yellow polenta in the middle, but you still have the circles, and they're creating a little bit of shadowing. So it's really dramatic and nice. And I always shoot a little bit underexposed so that I can push those colors, and I can push the the light temperature and everything else a little bit in post. So I have a little bit of freedom and flexibility. I'm also going to shoot this sort of standing back and just letting that light rake in on the left. It's not as dramatic with this lens from that perspective. So I'm going to swap it out. Go with my 50.
Because that was your macro lens, correct?
No, this is the macro lens.
Oh,
so I was on a standard 50, which is what I usually use when I shoot overhead. And then this is the macro. So we help to take the lens cap off. So there I am.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to get a little tighter here because I felt like I lost context a little bit. Yeah, and that's nice. It's a little dark, so I'm going to go down to 4.0 from 5.6. And that's a tiny bit bright. So I'm going to split the difference. And there we go. So that.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
There we go. So it's kind of, it's a different look than the overhead, but it's still kind of working those circles around my frame. And I'm using the circles to create my frame. So I really like it. But if I want to get in nice and tight here and get a really pretty macro shot, I still kind of need to incorporate the whole circle, or else it sort of starts to look weird. So even when I'm tight, I still want to create a situation where I'm still capturing the entirety of the circle of polenta.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm going to show you the difference.
Capturing that round shot or the roundness of the plate.
Yeah, you see how that kind of got cropped?
Yeah.
That shot, and it doesn't work anymore. It just kind of starts to feel off because my eye is attuned to this circular motif. And then when you chop off the corner of it, it sort of feels a little strange. But if I get really close, that no longer becomes a problem. Now check this out. I'm going to get really close, and I got to get a little brighter because as I get closer, I lose some light into my lens. And one more time. I think it's maybe a vertical. I was right. It is definitely a vertical. So you check it out. Here we go.
That's it. Oh, that looks so good. I'm getting so hungry.
So I didn't have to use the full frame to make the circle motif on this. I got the little edge on the bottom of the yellow here, and then I used the two arcs here in vertical to control.
There we go.
You see,
and
then if I decide to go from the top, I could do something very similar where I'm really getting down on the top. I'm going to just make a quick adjustment. Now, when you're shooting top down, one of the things I want you to remember is you want to focus on the highest point in your plate, because what's going to happen is everything from the highest point in your plate down will be in focus. But if you focus down here, all of this stuff at the top is going to be out of focus. So when you're shooting top down, focus on the high point and then let all of that aperture pull everything else into focus. Is that clear? Cool.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you.
I'm going to take away the charger now and see if we made the right choice from the beginning and see how that looks. I'm going to stay with this lens, and you could see how we get, this is a full-size dinner fork, and it to me looks too big for this plate. And this is, again, why we scale down, right? Because this, even though this isn't a gigantic dinner fork, it's still a little big for this plate. So what I could do is either frame it differently, where I'm not seeing the entire fork. That's what I'm going to do now. Yeah, so if I did that, I kind of just gave a kind of peek of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel as out of place there. And if I had a smaller fork, I would go to a smaller fork right now. But alas, my forks are all the same size. Okay. One more macro shot. I want to show you how to pick up the corners and pick up some spectral highlights out of this kind of beautiful raked light in the corner. Yeah, we got this dreamy, dreamy look here.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that
great.
really works nice. So we made some really pretty pictures here with, very little on hand. We made the polenta with the sausage and the onions. And then we got some really nice pictures with just what we had here. And listen, the thing that you have to remember when you're shooting at home is that the light is the key. If you are able to find decent light in your space and you use neutral props and you have a basic, you're basically letting the food be the star, you're gonna come up with pretty good results if you have good light. Now, if I shot that with my phone, I'm sure I'd still get good results because the phones are really good right now. So I think if you're at home and you're cooking and you want to capture, just remember a few of the key things that I talked about. Downsize your props, keep them neutral, and get the best light in the house. Now, a lot of times the best light in the house isn't in the kitchen, and that's okay. Like go to the bedroom and set up a table in front of the window. You want north or southwestern facing light. So right now, I'm facing northeast or southwest. I want to be northeast or southwest in the corners of my light space because I'm going to get diffused light most of the day. That's the theory behind why we want northeast or southwestern facing light, because you're going to get this sort of rake light that comes through without being too harsh. So that sort of works best for me. In my studio, I have southwestern light, and then in my home here, I have northeastern facing light. Now, I didn't want to correct you, but I feel like the shot that I made out the window kind of was a dead giveaway that I'm not in upstate New York. I'm actually in New Jersey.
Oh,
because
I swear
there's
you were in upstate New York.
No, because there's
ocean. Definitely no ocean in upstate New York.
Sorry, there's no ocean in upstate New York, but it was something that I felt like we could probably avoid until I showed the picture of the ocean.
I'm sorry. You are so right. My memory was wrong there.
No, it's okay. It's all good because I'm normally in New York City, which, would make sense that my weekender would be in upstate New York. I've had two weekenders in my life. One was in Pennsylvania and the other one is down here on the Jersey Shore. How do you like that?
All right.
That was almost a good catch. I'm having a hard time figuring out where the camera is on this phone today. Okay. Any questions about what we shot or anything about what we cooked or any of it? I guess the only question left is, how does this taste? Because I know the first 2 weeks I tried the food for everybody, and
Andrew Scrivani does not make food that only looks good. It always tastes good too.
This answers the question of, do you shoot real food? Because if this was rubber and something else, I wouldn't be eating it. But man, it is really good.
Great. I'm glad to hear. I'm excited for this recipe. This is the one that I have all the ingredients and I will be making this week. My husband was overhearing how delicious it sounded. So I think this is added to my weekly dinners this week.
And the other thing, remember about this polenta, Kate, is that it definitely firms up once it hits the plate. So it seemed a little loose when we first plated it, but it firmed up perfectly. It held that beautiful circle shape on the plate for shooting, but it really did, and it holds up really nice against the onions and the spicy sausage. The polenta could be a little bland, and it's definitely really umami with the cheese and the butter, so that when you put the spicy sausage in combination with that, it sort of balances it all together. It's a really nice flavor in your mouth. It's really good.
Nice. Now, Andrew, remind us, you are coming to us from your work from home cafe every day of the week, or is it just 5 days a week?
Well, I kind of sometimes will post on a weekend. I don't have a set schedule for work from home cafe. Sometimes I do a full recipe. Sometimes I do what I call a quick hit, where I'll just I won't appear on camera, but I will post a recipe with some instructions. And then I'm here on Mondays and I'm doing, I've been on Tasting Table a little bit. I've been on Spruce Eats a little bit. I'm going to be doing a piece for my agent, Ray Brown Pro. We're going to do something on their site. So I'm bouncing around a little bit and talking about Work From Home Cafe and posting recipes and other things. I do have some things lined up to post this week. So I'm going to be posting some new recipes this week. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing on Wednesday yet, but that'll probably be the next big work from home, where I do like a full recipe where I talk to camera and introduce what I'm up to. So I think I've probably slowed down just a little bit in the last couple of days, but because it's kind of hard to keep up with. For people who do this regularly.
We weren't expecting this to continue. So we're all figuring it out as we go along.
Yes, absolutely.
And remind us where we can follow you to keep up with your work from home cafe. Obviously, everyone can come back here every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. But if they want to follow you along on social media or the other places you'll be sharing some recipes, remind us where else we should be following you, Andrew.
Yes, this all originates on Instagram stories. You can find me at Andrew Scrivani. And it's going to also, once they are recorded on Instagram stories and all of these that get recorded here on CreativeLive, I post them on my YouTube page. So anything work from home cafe related, I think we're up to 25 recipes now, plus quick hits. So there's probably more like 30 or 35. We'll probably have, hopefully by the end of this, maybe we'll have a full cookbook and be able to publish a cookbook. But, we have close to 30 recipes now, and they're all here on CreativeLive knows how to find me on Instagram. And then I'm on YouTube. And I think on Facebook, you can also see the stories on Facebook too. So I'm there. I'm available. So just spell my name and you'll find me.
You'll find it. And the hashtag to share your photos, because we would love to see what you guys are creating at home. Share your photos with hashtag WFHCafe, and me and Andrew will be taking a look at it. Again, I'm Kate Dessa, the host of this episode of CreativeLive TV, and this is Andrew Scrivani, one of our amazing food photography instructors and a world-renowned food photographer and amazing at-home chef. So thank you again, Andrew, for joining us this week, and I can't wait for next week.
Me too. Thanks so much, Kate. Really nice to be here, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
Sounds good. Have a good week.
You too. See you later.
Bye.